between forest nymph and werewolf, the place of man in the world according to pre-Slavic mythology, Geralt Kharacternyk, magician. The detective sculptor team welcomes you to the investigation of Witcher's case, or rather, the contents of all those gloomy magical transformations that takes place in his world. Not all are far from the real-world permissive fantasies, but accurate descriptions of subconscious realities. As part of this investigation, we have established higher way out of many dead ends of subconscious labyrinths, Mamai's path, which involves a constant balance between inclusion and exclusion, both in the surrounding events and your ego. However, a person must be mentally healthy, and what to do when he cannot maintain mental balance? In this case, someone like the Witcher comes to aid. Someone can undergo transformation of their own free will and then return. Such professionals have many names for entering into altered states of consciousness, the most famous of which are shaman, witch, sorcerer, and Kharacternyk, magician. Cossacks with paranormal abilities were called Kharacternyki, magicians. In particular, the Polish historian of the mid-16th century Bartosz Paprocki left evidence of the Cossack ordering bullets, removing them from themselves and directing them back at the enemies. The chaplain of the Crown Army, Szymon Okorsky, left memories of the Cossacks' mass use of sorcerers during the defense of Hovta in April 1638. They settled on towers and high roofs of the city to order good shooting, air, and fire. In the 19th century, the historian Apollos Kalmovsky described the Kharacternyk as not being captured by a single bullet. Who can cast such spells? Then the Cossacks will remain invisible to any god. According to legend, the most famous wizard Ataman Sirko, who commanded the Cossacks in more than 100 battles with the Turks and Tartars, was able to turn into a wolf and didn't lose even one. According to legend, dying Sirko ordered to cut off his hand from his dead body to bring good luck in military campaigns. The dried paws of animals still played the same role as a mascot in different nations. In particular, a rabbit's foot perceived as a mascot in the North American Indians was reflected in the 1970 film Run Simon Run, with Burt Reynolds in the lead role. Let us also recall that according to the most well-argued version, the word Kharacternyk, magician, comes from the Turkish Karatirnik, meaning black claw. Isn't the ability to acquire a beastly image at the very basis of characterization? After all, the character has a lot in common with the werewolf. In particular, you can only kill them with a silver bullet in the heart. Hunting for nymphs, Povitrula, the daughter of mountain winds, and Lisnitsa, evil spirits, that often turns to the wolf, and Chugaistyr, so the werewolf is the defender of the living from the dead. In popular culture, a stamp of confrontation exists between vampires and werewolves. In particular, in the film Van Helsing, Dracula can be defeated only in the image of a werewolf, and in the series of films Another World, the race of vampires is waging an endless war with the race of werewolves. Ukrainian mythology allows us to explain this opposition because a living person turns into a wolf and a dead man turns into a vampire, mermaid, nymph. So, the antagonism of wolves and vampires is the antagonism of life and death. The werewolf is the basis of and image of Geralt of Rivia. His wolf features are even too evident. He is directly called the White Wolf. On his chest, a medallion depicting a wolf's head, warning the owner of imminent danger, and finally, he belongs to one of the three witch schools, the Wolf School. Not too hidden werewolves are all the Starks with their helper animals in the form of ravens. We have already found out that helper animals are incarnations of the hero himself. Thus, the mythical archetype of the confrontation between the werewolf and the nymph, in other words, the antagonism of the fire of life and the cold of death, emerges through the duel between Jon Snow and the White Wanderer. Thus, the mythical code marks a man's pause between sila of uncontrolled emotions and the charybdis of the laws of inspiration for life, to sleep between them, pushing them together. Speaking in the language of myth, if a person suffers from the loss of strength, desires, and joy of life, she fell victim to the living dead in one of his many masks, from haircuts to nameless horror. To defeat this enemy, you should seek the help of the beast. In other words, to be close to nature, ride a horse, swim with dolphins, have a pet of course, not a cold-blooded creature, but an animal with hot blood and violent feelings. To engage in extreme sport that would cause a rush of adrenaline and burst of uncontrollable emotions, skydiving, rafting, climbing, and more. This turbulent influx of life will tear to pieces the urge to die that turned a living person into a dead man for life. In particular, this mythical way of healing is described by King of Horrors, Stephen King, in the short story General, included in the 1985 film Cat's Eye. A gremlin-like creature steals the breath of a girl Polly at night, which, thanks to him, the monster eventually greens the fan. Again, we have a very accurate description of real psychological processes, simply made in the language of fairy tales and myth. The cat protects the child from losing vitality by itself, simply because he is involved in life with all four legs and doesn't know what depression, frustration, and inability to wake up in the morning. But what to do when a person's problem is his beast, which manifests himself in outbursts of anger or outbursts of unreasonable panic, gambling addiction, in short, the inability to subdue the shoals of unwanted feelings of reason? It is clear that in this case it is necessary to oppose the beast. We will explore this even more complex path in the following investigations. In the meantime, we remind you that your feedback and likes will give us strength and inspiration, as well as that we will play our next medallion among all those who signed up for the Patreon. During the investigation of the Witcher's case, we plan to sculpt medallions of all three witch schools. The first two series were related to the creation of the Wolf School medallion. Now, in front of you is a cat medallion. He will not replace a living cat, but no worse than Geralt's wolf will help you discover the hidden and warn of danger. See you!